hike on the beautiful Two Ponds Trail at the Pocono Environmental Education Center, our guide gave us all the information we needed to know about the signs of the changing seasons. Here, our hike guide stops to show us the very first sign of fall that comes to most people's minds, the changing leaves. Though it is the most revered and admired sign of fall, most people don't know why the leaves change. What does it benefit to the trees to change and drop their leaves? And what in nature signals the change to happen? Do you know why the leaves change? You may be wondering where the leaves get their red, yellow, and orange colors. Well, they were in the leaf the entire time. All leaves contain chemicals called pigments, and there are 4 main types of pigments in each leaf, representing 4 important colors. Leaves get their green color from a pigment called chlorophyll. They get their yellow color from a chemical called xanthophyllus. They get their orange color from carotenoids, and they get their red color from anthocyanins. Leaves are green in the spring and in the summer because that is when they're making a lot of chlorophyll. Chlorophyll is important to the leaf because it's what allows the leaf to go through the process of photosynthesis, which is the process of making energy for the plant from sunlight. The summer sunlight is what triggers the leaves to keep making chlorophyll all throughout the spring and the summer. Trees are very sensitive to the changes in their environment, and they notice that as summer turns to fall and the days get shorter and shorter, and we have fewer hours of sunlight, that they should stop making so much chlorophyll. And that's why the green color fades. As the leaf stops making the green colored chlorophyll, it fades, and all those other colored pigments that are already in the leaves, the red, the orange, and the yellows, all start to show in the leaf, and that happens in the fall. But it's not just sunlight that has an effect on the changing colors of the trees. It's also weather. Weather plays an important part in the color change that we see all around us. As we get into the fall, the temperatures get colder and there's so much more rain and snow. These changes in the weather conditions can play a role in how early the leaves change and how long they keep their beautiful colors throughout the fall season. As the ground gets colder and there's less water seeping into the soil, trees can sense that there's less water for them to pull up from the ground. Leaves give off a lot of the water that the tree takes up. Trees pull that water from the ground up through their roots, up through the phloem in the trunk of the tree, and up into their leaves. In the summer, it's okay for trees to lose a lot of water through transpiration because they're able to pull a lot of water up from the ground, and a lot of water will be falling in the form of rain. Therefore, trees drop their leaves in the winter so that they won't give off as much water. They don't have as much water available to them in the ground to pull up through their roots because a lot of that water will be frozen. This is why extreme weather changes can also have a major effect on leaves. For example, a drought or an early frost could make all the leaves fall off the tree before they've had time to change colors. You can think of this as the tree almost panicking about the weather condition and dropping all its leaves before it has a chance to get too cold. When you think of fall leaves, you probably think of leaves like these, broad leaves that change into vibrant colors in the fall. But that is not always the case. Do you know the difference between deciduous and coniferous trees? A deciduous tree is any tree that drops its leaves in the fall and goes dormant during the cold winter months. A coniferous tree is any tree that reproduces via cones. Oftentimes, deciduous trees are thought of as any tree that has broad leaves, and deciduous trees are any tree that has needles. This is not always the case, especially not in the fall. There are some deciduous coniferous trees. These trees have needles and reproduce via cones, though they drop all of their needles in the fall. A local example of this type of tree is a larch tree. It has needles and cones, but they lose all of those needles in the fall. Next time you're out hiking and looking at all the beautiful trees we have here in Northeast Pennsylvania, see if you can spot a larch tree. That'll probably be a big bed of very soft needles all around the base of the trunk. One of the coolest features of the Two Ponds Trail at Peak is the second pond. It has a friendly neighborhood beaver. If you're walking the trail, you'll come to a small footbridge. Just below the bridge is one of the beaver's dams. Did you know that just like a lot of nature, beavers go through a lot of changes in the changes of the season? When you think of the changes that beavers go through in the fall to winter months, you're probably wondering, do beavers migrate? No, there's no great beaver migration from up north to down south. They stay in their home pond, their stream, lake, and they swim under the ice. What about hibernation? Nope, beavers don't hibernate either. They're active throughout the entire winter. There's no relaxing winter nap for these guys. In the winter months, a beaver will get a thicker coat, made up of coarse hairs along the surface, and a layer underneath made up of fine hairs with tiny hooks on them that mesh together and keep water away from the beaver's body. In the winter months, beavers will eat buds and twigs from their favorite trees and shrubs. They will nibble on buds and twigs of their favorite trees and shrubs and just nibble on the outer layer of bark and not the inner wood. They save those classic beaver chew marks on the trees for just the summertime. Though we didn't get to see any beavers on our hike that day, we got to see all the amazing signs that they were there. Another classic sign of fall that you probably already know about is to look up into the sky. Not only is the sun setting earlier a definite sign of fall, but also you can see great V formations of geese making their way down south. Unlike beavers, geese travel south in the fall to escape the cold weather we get up in the north. They travel in a V formation for two important reasons. The first reason is that it's a good way to conserve energy. Each bird in the V flies just a little bit above the bird below it. This cuts down on wind resistance greatly. The geese can fly for a longer amount of time and not stop for rest if they fly in this formation. The second benefit to flying in that V shape is that it's an easy way for the geese to know where everyone else in their flock is. It makes communication and coordination among the group so much easier. This is why you'll often see fighter pilots also flying planes in the shape of a V. This is a great example of humans learning from nature a better way to do things. Now that we've finished our hike and have learned all of the cool signs of fall and marveled at all the beautiful things that we found along our trail, we're going to head inside the main building of the Pocono Environmental Education Center, where we'll meet up with Stephanie Sherman-Barr, Director of Education for Peak, and she's going to show us their exciting and educational and interactive Eco Zone.
Excellent. So this is Peak's Eco Zone. Our Eco Zone originally dates back to the Honeymoon Haven days. Prior to us being Pocono Environmental Education Center, we were Honeymoon Haven and a resort in the Pocono heydays of travel. And so people will come up here for their first outing as a newlywed couple. And once the Delaware Water Gap National Recreation Area was created, this facility was then mothballed for a bit and it became a perfect site for the founding of Pocono Environmental Education Center. Our pool was in operation into about the 90s or so. However, that became too expensive, so we had to think creatively on how to repurpose this wonderful, huge space into a way to bring kids closer to nature and the outdoors, to see things that they probably would not be able to see up close if we were outside traveling in the park. So We use this for a variety of different classes. Our highlight happens to be right behind me with our own custom built beaver lodge and bat cave. Those allow kids to get up close and personal with the environments of some of our native species, like our beavers and our native bats, without having to be intrusive to any of our local populations of beavers or bats. So kids will come in, go down, have a nice little talk as a teaching space on our classrooms there, on our stage there, and be able to travel inside and really immerse themselves in what life would be for a beaver. For our bat cave, it's fully enclosed, it's dark inside there, and kids get to put on like little lanterns, and we take them in and we talk about cave formations, and they can actually see the geological structures that would be in a natural cave. And we talk about the importance of bats as, pest control, white nose syndrome, and they really get immersed into learning about these animals that aren't well understood. So that is one of our highlight focal points. But around the rest of the perimeter of our ecozone are other stations that we use for our classes here. And on a weekend day, on a normal busy year, we would see people for open ecozones as well, where you can meet some of our wildlife that we have here. So we have our Skins and Skulls wall, and this is where kids can get up close and personal with some of our native species, like our black bear pelt, our fox pelts, our big beaver pelt, and a little beaver taxidermy that we have, because these are things that the kids can touch and other people can touch that you wouldn't normally be able to see in wildlife. Our skulls let us talk about the adaptations that they have for their lifestyles. And then we also have our herps. So herps is short for herpetofauna, which means creepy, crawly kind of things, but they mean reptiles and amphibians. So our reptiles and amphibians here are ambassadors for getting to know things that might be out even in our backyard here in Pike County. So we have our black rat snake, Greta. We have our turtles. We have three-toed box turtle. We have several yellow-bellied turtles, a red-eared slider, painted turtle. And then we also have an American toad. And a little bit more exotic here, we also keep a collection of Madagascar hissing cockroaches because they are a great ambassador for learning about the importance of bugs in our ecosystem, because everything's got to eat, and sometimes it's mostly bugs that they're eating. So it's a good way to introduce students and adults even to the importance of these lesser understood creatures as well. So that we use during our wildlife studies a lot. Moving on through our ecozone, we have our fossil pit where we do a nice geology program that ties into a lot of our bat cave and geology. We also have our sustainability wall. Our sustainability wall is quite popular because of the bikes. Kids can actually get on and physically power light bulbs with their pedal movement and see how much energy it really does take to turn on a light bulb. If they get really motivated and we get 4 on the bikes, we can maybe get all the way to turning on that heater or that fan, and they really learn the cost of the energy through that process. We also have other demonstrations on how we can reduce, reuse, recycle through our sustainability wall, including some natural insulation versus fiberglass insulation, which is not as sustainable for the environment. Moving on, we also have our very own Build-A-Bear. Now, it's not like those fluffy little guys that you see in the mall. Instead, we have a full-grown black bear that is the skeleton. So kids can learn about the anatomy of a black bear. Option that we have is our hydroponics, which is up in our window there. It's all focused on just using water as the substance to grow your plants in, and is growing in sustainability for many urban areas. Next to that is our aquaponics system, a little bit more intensive because not only are we just growing plants, we also are feeding fish. And quite simply, fish poop does grow our mint here, which is now growing in our bed. So we have some native species that have come in from our local ponds, including catfish and sunfish. And just with a little bit of feeding them and keeping them healthy, they help our plants grow in the grow bed there. And finally, our biggest highlight and photo shoot here is our bald eagle nest. a popular favorite for photos here at Peak. This bald eagle nest is to life-size scale. It is set in a white oak trunk that actually came from the property of Peak here and has been embedded into the concrete of the ecozone for stability. So here is a great lesson of how we here at the Delaware Water Gap National Recreation Area saw the resurgence after things like the Clean Water Act and Clean Air movement to bring back and really recover our nation's bald eagle, because back in about the 70s or so, we didn't really have bald eagles here. But now today, when you're out on the Delaware River, you can see almost a dozen or more on a good day. And so this is a testament to what conservation and environmental education can do to help improve the life for us as well as the wildlife here.
Okay.
All right, so our dining hall here at Peak is quite unique. Many students actually come here to look about and see the green architecture that goes into it, because we have many different sustainable features that go to it. The whole building is sloped to be passive solar. So the giant windows that you see actually will take in all of the winter sun over the course of the season. So, and then the floors are also passive heating. So that keeps our building warm and more energy efficient, as well as having windows for heat to rise and cool air to come in at the bottom. On the exterior of our dining hall, we have reclaimed tires. Not all of them came from the Delaware River, but a good majority. And it shows an example that you can use reclaimed tires and rubber as alternative shingling methods. So it just shows a new creative way to upcycle them.